Ember had never seen anything quite like the small creature that followed his mother through the hangar bay doors. It walked on two legs, wore strange fabric coverings, and carried a bag almost as big as itself. The thing looked up at the towering dragons around it without any fear in its eyes, which surprised everyone watching. Commander Scala landed with her usual grace, her crimson scales catching the artificial light. Behind her, the small being stumbled slightly but kept walking. Ember pressed himself against the observation window, his young wings fluttering with curiosity. He was supposed to be in his language studies, but this was far more interesting. "That is a human," his teacher, an elderly dragon named Ashwing, said quietly. "Your mother found it on the outer colonies. They say it can fly ships better than dragons twice its age." Ember did not believe that. Dragons were the best at everything. Everyone knew this. His mother had told him so since he hatched. Yet here was this tiny, scaleless thing that apparently broke all the rules. The human boy was brought to the testing chambers that afternoon. Ember snuck away from his duties to watch through the gallery windows. Other dragons filled the space, whispering among themselves. Admiral Thornback sat in the center, his ancient gray scales looking like old stone. "Begin the simulation," Thornback ordered. The human, who Ember learned was called Billy Reed, climbed into the pilot seat. The chair was made for dragons, and he looked absurdly small in it. But when the simulation started, something changed. Billy's hands moved across the controls with impossible speed. His eyes tracked 6 different screens at once. The test ship on the display wove through asteroid fields, dodged plasma fire, and executed maneuvers that made the watching dragons gasp. Ember watched Billy's face. The boy was smiling, not grimacing in concentration like dragon cadets did, but actually smiling like this was fun. The simulation ended with the highest score anyone had seen in 50 years. Admiral Thornback said nothing for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "The human stays." Over the following weeks, Ember kept finding excuses to visit the training wings where Billy was kept. The human boy lived in a small room that had been hastily converted from a storage closet. It had none of the warming stones dragons needed, just a thin sleeping pad and a locker for belongings. Ember felt sorry for him. Billy was always alone. The adult dragons were either studying him like he was an experiment or ignoring him completely. Human cadets did not exist yet. Billy was the first of his kind here. One evening, Ember gathered his courage and approached Billy in the common area. The boy was sitting by himself, staring at a datapad showing images of a blue and green planet. "That is Earth?" Ember asked, his voice coming out higher than he intended. He was still young and his vocal cords had not fully developed. Billy looked up, surprised. "Yeah, my home. Well, not exactly. I am from the colonies, but Earth is where humans started." "It looks wet," Ember said, sitting down. Even sitting, he was 3 times Billy's height. "Do you miss it?" Billy shrugged. "Sometimes. But there was nothing for me there anymore. My parents died in a mining accident. The colony did not want another mouth to feed. When your mother's recruitment ship came, I volunteered. You chose this?" Ember was shocked. Dragon Young never chose to leave their parents. They stayed together for decades. "I am good at flying," Billy said simply. "Here, that matters. Back home, I was just an orphan." Ember thought about this. "I am Ember," he said finally. "My mother is Commander Scala." "I know," Billy grinned. "She is terrifying." "She is," Ember agreed, and they both laughed. From that moment, an unlikely friendship formed. Ember showed Billy the secret passages through the station that only dragons knew about, the ones using thermal currents that made flying effortless. Billy taught Ember games from Earth, strange things with cards and dice that made no sense at first but became addictive. Billy was fascinated by everything about dragons. He asked endless questions about fire breathing, about flight mechanics, about their history. In return, Ember learned about human music, about something called pizza that Billy missed desperately, about movies and books and ideas that dragons had never imagined. "Humans tell stories differently than dragons," Billy explained one day. They were in Ember's quarters, a vast space with high ceilings and perches. "Dragons tell histories, records of what really happened. Humans make things up. We imagine what could be, not just what was." "That sounds like lying," Ember said, confused. "No, it is dreaming while awake," Billy insisted. "It is how we figure out new ideas." The months passed quickly. Ember stopped feeling like the lonely child of a commander. and started feeling like someone with purpose. Billy stopped looking sad when he thought no one was watching. They were an odd pair, but they fit together in a way that made sense to both of them. Then the message came. Ember was practicing his flame control when his mother arrived with Billy and a formal-looking dragon official. Billy's face was hard to read, something between excited and heartbroken. "Ember," Scala said gently, "Billy has been accepted to the Frontier Academy. It is a great honor. He leaves in 3 days." Ember's fire sputtered out. "Leaves, but why? He is learning here. The academy is where real pilots are made," the official said. "The human shows promise. We need to see if that promise can be fulfilled." Billy looked at Ember. "I have to go. This is the chance I needed. But I will come back. I promise." Ember wanted to argue, to roar, to make them understand that this was wrong. But he was just a young dragon and Billy was just a human boy. Neither of them had any power to change what the fleet decided. 3 days felt like 3 heartbeats. Then Billy was gone and Ember was alone again, staring at the empty space where his only friend had been. Ember stopped eating properly after Billy left. His mother noticed first, of course. Scala was a military commander, but she was still a mother, and she saw how her son's scales had lost their bright copper shine, turning dull like old metal. "You must eat," she told him on the 5th day. "Your body needs fuel for growth." "I'm not hungry," Ember said, which was not quite true. He was hungry, but food tasted like ash in his mouth. Everything reminded him of Billy. The training rooms where they had raced, the observation deck where they had watched ships come and go. Even his own quarters felt wrong because Billy was not there to fill the space with his strange human laughter. Scala tried everything. She brought Ember his favorite meals, the ones with extra spice that made his fire burn hotter. She arranged for other young dragons to visit, though there were not many on the station. She even offered to let him skip his studies for a week. Nothing worked. Ember went through the motions of daily life like a ghost. He attended lessons but retained nothing. He practiced flying, but his movements were mechanical, empty of the joy that once made him soar. At night he curled up in the coldest corner of his quarters, ignoring the warming stones, feeling like the ice in his chest matched the ice outside in space. The other dragons began to talk. Ember heard the whispers when he passed. "The commander's son has grown weak over a human. He will never make a proper warrior if he cannot handle separation. This is why we should not mix species. They are too different." Admiral Thornback called Scala to his office. Ember did not hear the conversation, but he saw his mother's face when she returned. She looked angry and worried at the same time, which was a rare combination for her. "Ember," she said that evening, settling her massive form beside him, "we need to discuss something." "If this is about Billy, I do not want to hear it," Ember said quietly. "Everyone keeps saying I should forget him and move on. But he was my friend. My only friend. Dragons do not understand because you keep your family close for decades. Billy and I only had months and now he is gone." Scala was quiet for a long time. Then she did something unexpected. She wrapped one wing around her son, creating a sheltered space, the way she had when he was newly hatched and afraid of thunderstorms. "You are right," she said. "We do not understand. Dragon friendships develop slowly over years. We cannot imagine forming such a strong bond so quickly. But that does not make your feelings wrong, Ember. It makes them different, and different is not bad." Ember felt something crack inside him. He had been holding everything in, trying to be strong like dragons were supposed to be, but his mother's words gave him permission to feel what he had been fighting. He pressed against her scales and let himself grieve properly. "I miss him," Ember whispered. "Is that weakness?" "No," Scala said firmly. "That is love. And love is never weakness, no matter what the old warriors say." Billy's messages started arriving after 2 weeks. The first one was bright and full of excitement. He described the academy, the other human cadets who had been recruited from various colonies, the advanced simulators that made the station's equipment look ancient. He talked about his instructors, about the demanding schedule, about the things he was learning. Ember watched the message 50 times, memorizing every word, every expression on Billy's face. He tried to record a response, but everything he said sounded wrong. How could he tell Billy that the station felt empty without him? That Ember had stopped caring about his own training? That would only make Billy feel guilty, and Billy deserved to be happy at the academy. So Ember lied. He recorded a cheerful message saying everything was fine, that he was learning new flight techniques, that he hoped Billy was doing well. It felt hollow, but it was better than the truth. More messages came over the weeks. Billy's second message was less enthusiastic. He mentioned that some of the human cadets resented him for advancing so quickly. He talked about an instructor who pushed him harder than the others, making him repeat drills until he got them perfect. But he still smiled, still said he was grateful for the opportunity. The third message arrived after a month. Billy looked tired. He had a bruise on his face that he did not explain. His words were careful, measured, like he was being watched while recording. He asked about Ember, asked if his friend was eating well, asked if the dragons were treating him fairly. Ember finally managed to send a real response. He told Billy about his mother's words, about how he was trying to move forward, but it was hard. He admitted he was lonely. He asked if Billy was really okay or if he was hiding things too. Billy's fourth message took 2 weeks to arrive. Space was vast and the academy was 5-star systems away. Communication delays were inevitable. But Ember felt every second of those 2 weeks like physical pain. When the message finally came, Billy's face was carefully neutral. "I am fine," he said. "Just busy. The training is intense, but I am handling it. Do not worry about me, Ember. Focus on your own studies. I will visit when I can, but that might not be for a while. The academy does not give much leave time." Ember knew humans well enough by now to read between the words. Billy was not fine. Something was wrong. But he was so far away, and Ember was just a young dragon with no authority, no power to help. Scala found her son that evening staring out at the stars, trying to figure out which distant point of light might be where Billy was. "I have been thinking," Scala said carefully. "You need something in your life beyond waiting for messages. You need a purpose, a connection, something immediate and real." "Nothing can replace Billy," Ember said automatically. "I know," Scala agreed, "and I am not trying to replace him. But Ember, you cannot live your life waiting for someone who might not return for years. That is not fair to you or to him." Ember turned to look at his mother. "What are you suggesting?" Scala's eyes held something Ember had never seen before. Uncertainty. His mother was never uncertain. She made decisions with absolute confidence, but now she looked almost nervous. "I met a species during my travels," she said slowly. "They are called Purians. Small creatures not suited for combat, often overlooked by the fleet. But they have a gift, Ember. They can sense emotions, can share feelings, can help heal the hurts that physical medicine cannot touch." "You want to bring me a pet?" Ember asked, feeling insulted. "I am not a child who needs a toy." "No," Scala said firmly. "I want to bring you a companion. Someone who needs you as much as you need them. Someone who can help you find purpose again while you wait for Billy to come home." Ember did not want this. He wanted Billy back. But his mother was looking at him with such hope that he could not refuse her. "All right," he said quietly, "but this changes nothing. Billy is still my friend." "I know," Scala said gently, "and he always will be." The creature his mother brought home was smaller than Ember had imagined. It fit in Scala's palm, a tiny ball of silver fur that glowed faintly blue in the dim light of their quarters. 2 large eyes stared up at Ember with what looked like curiosity and fear mixed together. "This is Ribbon," Scala said, holding her hand out so Ember could see better. "She was rescued from a trading ship where Purians were being sold as exotic pets. She has nowhere else to go." Ember looked at the tiny being and felt nothing but irritation. This was supposed to help him? This creature was so small he might accidentally step on it. It had no scales, no wings, no fire. What good could it possibly do? "I do not want this," Ember said, turning away. "Send it back wherever it came from." He heard his mother sigh, but she did not argue. Instead, she set Ribbon down on a warming stone in the corner and left. Ember curled up on the opposite side of the quarters, deliberately putting his back to the small creature. For a long time, neither of them moved. Then Ember felt something strange. It was not a sound or a smell or anything physical. It was a feeling that seemed to come from outside himself, like someone else's emotion was touching his mind. Sadness, loneliness, fear, but not his own feelings. These came from somewhere else. He turned his head slightly and saw Ribbon still sitting on the warming stone. The creature's glow had dimmed to almost nothing. She was trembling slightly, her small form radiating misery that Ember could somehow sense. Despite himself, Ember felt a flicker of guilt. He was not the only one who had lost everything. This creature had been taken from her home, sold like an object, rescued by strangers, and brought to a place where she knew no one. At least Ember had his mother. Ribbon had nobody, but Ember pushed the guilt away. He did not ask for this responsibility. He did not want to care about another creature when caring hurt so much. So he closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. The next morning, Ribbon was still there. She had moved closer during the night, now sitting at the edge of the warming stone nearest to where Ember lay. Her glow was slightly brighter, a soft silver blue that pulsed gently. Ember tried to ignore her. He went about his daily routine, attending lessons, practicing flight maneuvers, eating meals in the communal areas. But everywhere he went, Ribbon followed at a distance. Not close enough to be intrusive, but close enough that Ember always knew she was there. The other dragons found this hilarious. "The commander's son has a shadow," they laughed. "Look at the mighty dragon with his tiny pet." Ember wanted to tell them Ribbon was not his pet, was not his anything. But that would require acknowledging her existence, and he was determined not to do that. On the third day, Ember was practicing fire control in the training chambers. It was a difficult exercise that required breathing precise streams of flame at moving targets. He was doing poorly, his concentration broken by thoughts of Billy and annoyance at the small presence that had invaded his life. He missed a target completely, and his instructor, a strict dragon named Steelwing, scolded him harshly. "You are Commander Scala's son. You should be exceptional. Instead, you fly like a hatchling with no coordination." Again. Ember tried again and failed again. His fire came out in uncontrolled bursts instead of focused streams. Frustration built inside him until he wanted to roar and set everything ablaze. Then he felt it again, that external emotion. But this time it was not sadness. It was something calmer, softer, like a gentle breeze cooling his overheated mind. The feeling seemed to say without words, "You are trying too hard. Breathe. Focus on the warmth inside, not the anger." Ember glanced toward the observation window and saw Ribbon there, her small form pressed against the glass, glowing steadily. He did not understand how, but he knew the calming feeling came from her. He took a breath, let go of his frustration, and tried again. This time the flame came out controlled and precise, hitting the target perfectly. "Better," Steelwing said, surprised. "Do it again." Ember did and succeeded every time. He could feel Ribbon's presence in his mind, not controlling him but supporting him, helping him find the calm center he needed. After the lesson ended, Ember approached the observation window. Ribbon looked up at him, her large eyes reflecting his face. "Thank you," Ember said quietly, feeling foolish for talking to such a small creature. "I do not know how you did that, but thank you." Ribbon's glow brightened, pulsing in what seemed like happiness. That evening, for the first time since his mother brought her home, Ember allowed Ribbon to sit near him, not touching, just nearby. The creature settled on a cushion within arm's reach and began grooming her silver fur with tiny paws. "I had a friend," Ember found himself saying, "a human named Billy. He understood me in ways other dragons did not. When he left, I felt like part of me went with him. I know you are not Billy, I know you cannot replace him. But I also know what it feels like to be alone and afraid." Ribbon stopped grooming and looked at him. Ember felt a wave of understanding flow from her. She knew loss too. She knew abandonment. They were not so different, the lonely dragon and the lost kitten. "You can stay," Ember said, "but I am not good at this. I do not know how to take care of someone else when I can barely take care of myself." Ribbon made a small sound, something between a chirp and a purr. Then she did something that surprised Ember completely. She stood up on her hind legs, wobbled for a moment, then took a few unsteady steps toward him. She was trying to walk like Billy had, on 2 legs instead of 4. Ember realized she was trying to comfort him in a way she thought he would understand, trying to be like the friend he had lost. It was clumsy and awkward and completely unnecessary, but it was also the kindest thing anyone had done for him in weeks. "You do not have to be like Billy," Ember said gently, lowering his head until he was at eye level with the small creature. "You can just be Ribbon. That is enough." The creature dropped back to all fours and moved closer, finally closing the distance between them. She pressed her small body against Ember's snout, her fur warm and impossibly soft. The glow from her body intensified, wrapping around them both in gentle blue light. Ember felt something inside him begin to heal. Not completely. The wound of Billy's absence was still there, still raw and painful. But Ribbon's presence made it bearable. She did not fill the empty space Billy had left. Instead, she sat beside it, keeping Ember company in his grief, sharing her own sadness and somehow making both of their burdens lighter. "All right," Ember whispered. "We can try this together." Ribbon purred, and for the first time in weeks, Ember felt something close to peace. 3 months passed before Billy's next message arrived, and when it did, Ember almost did not recognize his friend. The boy in the recording looked older somehow, though only a short time had gone by. His eyes held a weariness that had not been there before. "Hey, Ember," Billy said, his voice lacking its usual energy. "Sorry it has been so long since my last message. Things have been busy here, really busy. The training never stops. They push us hard, but I guess that is the point. We have to be ready for anything." Ember watched carefully, and beside him Ribbon's glow flickered uncertainly. She had learned to read Ember's emotions so well that she could sense things even through recorded messages now, and what she sensed in Billy's words made her glow turn a worried shade of purple. "I heard you got yourself a companion," Billy continued, managing a small smile. "A Purian, your mom said. I would love to meet her someday. I bet she is amazing. I am glad you are not alone anymore, Ember. I worried about you." The message continued for a few more minutes, Billy describing training exercises and other cadets, but Ember barely heard the words. He was too focused on what was not being said. The pauses between sentences, the way Billy's eyes darted to the side, like he was checking if someone was watching, the forced cheerfulness that did not match the tension in his shoulders. When the message ended, Ember looked at Ribbon. "Something is wrong," Ribbon chirped in agreement, her small body tense with concern. She had never met Billy, but through Ember's memories and emotions she felt like she knew him, and now she sensed danger around him the same way Ember did. Ember recorded a response with Ribbon perched on his head, her glow casting gentle light. "Billy, I'm worried about you. Your messages say you are fine, but I know you. Something is wrong. Please tell me the truth. Are they treating you well? Are you safe?" He sent the message and tried not to think about the weeks it would take to reach Billy, and the weeks more before a response could return. Space was too vast and time moved too slowly when worry gnawed at your heart. Meanwhile, life on the station continued. Ember threw himself into training with new dedication. Ribbon had taught him something important. He could help others even when he was hurting himself. So he started noticing the other young dragons, the ones who struggled and had no one to encourage them. He befriended a young dragon named Ash who was terrible at flying, but excellent at strategy. He helped a nervous dragon called Frost who was afraid of heights despite having wings. Ribbon was always there, her presence calming, her empathic abilities helping smooth over conflicts and ease fears. Other dragons began to notice. Commander Scala watched her son with quiet pride. Even Admiral Thornback made a rare comment. "The boy is becoming a leader." Unexpected, but not unwelcome. But Ember's mind was never far from Billy. He checked for new messages constantly, hoping for reassurance that his friend was safe. When the reply finally came, Ember's worst fears were confirmed. Billy appeared on the screen, and this time he could not hide the truth. His face was bruised, one eye swollen. He tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. "I am okay," Billy said quickly, as if he knew Ember would panic. "It looks worse than it is. We had a training accident. Happens sometimes. The instructor said I was not fast enough, not strong enough. He said humans have to work twice as hard as everyone else to prove we belong here." Billy's hands shook slightly as he spoke. "They make me train longer than the others. Extra hours in the simulator. Extra drills. They say it is because I have potential, but sometimes it feels like they are trying to break me. The other human cadets think I get special treatment and they hate me for it. The dragon instructors think I am weak because I am human. I do not fit anywhere, Ember." Ember felt Ribbon's distress like a physical wave. Her glow had turned dark blue, almost black, and she made a distress sound he had never heard before. "But I cannot give up," Billy continued, and now his voice cracked slightly. "If I fail here, I prove everyone right. I prove that humans do not belong in the fleet. I have to succeed, not just for me, but for every human who comes after me. So I will keep going no matter what. I just wanted you to know the truth. I am tired, Ember, I am so tired." The message ended and Ember sat in stunned silence. His friend was suffering, was being pushed beyond safe limits, and Ember was 5-star systems away, unable to help. We have to do something, Ember said to Ribbon. We cannot just let this continue. Ribbon chirped urgently and jumped down from her perch. She ran to the door of their quarters and looked back at Ember, her meaning clear. They needed to tell someone. They needed help. Ember found his mother in her office reviewing reports. When Scala looked up and saw her son's face, she immediately gave him her full attention. Billy is in trouble, Ember said without preamble. They are hurting him at the academy. Not on purpose maybe, but they are pushing him too hard. You have to help him. Scala listened as Ember played the message. Her expression grew darker with each word Billy spoke. When it ended, she was silent for a long moment. This is not acceptable, Scala said finally, her voice cold with controlled anger. Billy is under the fleet's protection. If the academy is mishandling him, there will be consequences. Can you stop it? Ember asked. Can you bring him back? I can investigate, Scala said carefully. But Ember, even if what you say is true, Billy volunteered for this program. He wants to be there. We cannot simply pull him out without his consent. He thinks he has to suffer, Ember said desperately. He thinks he has to prove something. But he is just a kid. He should not have to carry the weight of his entire species on his shoulders. Ribbon, who had been silent until now, jumped onto Scala's desk and fixed the commander with an intense stare. Her glow pulsed urgently, and Ember felt what she was projecting. Fierce protectiveness, the need to defend those who could not defend themselves, the understanding that true strength meant protecting the vulnerable. Scala looked at the small creature with new respect. You are right, she said softly. Both of you. I will contact Admiral Thornback. We will arrange an inspection of the academy. And Ember, I think it is time you went to visit your friend. Visit? But I am too young to travel alone, Ember said. You will not be alone, Scala said, looking at Ribbon. You will have your companion. And I suspect Billy needs to see both of you more than he needs anything else right now. Ember felt hope surge through him for the first time in months. When can we leave? I will arrange it, Scala promised. Give me 2 days to make preparations. And Ember, when you see Billy, remind him of something important. Strength is not about suffering alone. Strength is knowing when to ask for help. Ribbon's glow brightened to brilliant silver, and Ember felt her joy mixing with his own. They were going to Billy. They were going to bring their friend home. The Frontier Academy sat on the edge of a dead moon, a massive structure of metal and stone that looked more like a prison than a school. Ember felt his stomach tighten as their transport ship approached. Ribbon, tucked safely in a carrier on his back, trembled with nervousness. They were greeted by an instructor named Ironwing, a stern dragon whose scales were the color of gunmetal. You are Commander Scala's son, he said, looking Ember up and down. You are here for an inspection visit. You will be shown our facilities and allowed supervised time with the human cadet. You will not interfere with training schedules. Is this understood? Understood, Ember said, trying to sound confident despite being far from home and surrounded by dragons who made him feel very young and very small. The academy was harsh in ways the home station was not. Everything was cold metal and sharp edges. There were no warming stones, no comfortable resting areas, no spaces designed for anything except function. Dragons moved through the corridors with military precision, their faces showing no warmth or welcome. Where is Billy? Ember asked as Ironwing led them through the facility. The human is in advanced simulation training. He will be available in 2 hours. You may wait in the observation gallery. 2 hours felt like an eternity, but finally Billy emerged from the training wing. He looked exhausted, his flight suit soaked with sweat, his movements slow with fatigue. When he saw Ember standing there, his face transformed. Pure joy replaced the weariness for just a moment. Ember, Billy breathed. Then he noticed the small creature peeking out from behind Ember's shoulder. And you must be Ribbon. They were given a private room for their meeting, though Ember suspected they were being monitored. Billy sat down heavily on a bench, and Ribbon, sensing his exhaustion and pain, immediately jumped from Ember's back to Billy's lap. Billy looked surprised but did not push her away. Ribbon pressed against his chest and began to purr, her glow wrapping around him in soothing blue light. Ember felt the wave of calm that Ribbon projected, could see the tension slowly leaving Billy's shoulders. She can sense emotions, Ember explained. She is helping you relax. I can feel it, Billy said with wonder. It is like someone turned down the volume on all the noise in my head. He looked up at Ember with eyes that were suddenly wet. I have missed you so much. I have missed you too, Ember said, settling beside his friend. Billy, we saw your last message. We are worried. What is really happening here? Billy was quiet for a long time, absently stroking Ribbon's fur. The small creature purred steadily, giving him the emotional support he needed to speak the truth. They are not cruel on purpose, Billy said slowly. The instructors genuinely believe they are preparing me for what is ahead, but they see me as a test, the first human pilot. If I succeed, more humans will be recruited. If I fail, the program dies with me. That is too much pressure for one person, Ember said. I know, Billy admitted, but what choice do I have? Every time I want to quit, I think about all the other humans back on the colonies who dream of being more than miners and farmers. I think about kids like me who have nothing and nobody. If I can do this, I can open doors for them. But you are breaking yourself in the process, Ember said gently. Look at you, Billy, you are exhausted. You are injured. This is not training, this is torture. It is necessary, Billy insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. Ribbon made a sad sound and Billy looked down at her. She disagrees, doesn't she? She thinks you are hurting yourself trying to prove something that should not need proving. Ember translated. And I agree with her. Billy, you have already shown that humans can fly as well as dragons. You proved that months ago. This is something else. This is them trying to push you until you break, and I will not let that happen. Before Billy could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed and an automated voice announced, "Unidentified signal detected. All personnel to stations. This is not a drill." Ironwing burst into the room. "Emergency deployment. Unknown vessel approaching the system. All advanced cadets are being scrambled for defensive positions." He looked at Billy. "That includes you, human." Billy stood immediately, his exhaustion forgotten in the face of duty. But Ember saw the fear in his friend's eyes, the way his hands shook slightly. "I am coming with you," Ember said. "You are not authorized," Ironwing started to say. "I am Commander Scala's son and I have completed basic flight training," Ember interrupted. "You need every pilot you can get and I am a pilot. I am coming." Something in Ember's tone must have convinced Ironwing because the instructor nodded sharply. "Fine. Both of you to the launch bay. Now." They ran through the corridors, Ribbon clinging to Ember's back, her glow flickering with anxiety. The launch bay was chaos, dragons and human cadets rushing to their ships. Billy grabbed Ember's shoulder before they separated to their assigned crafts. "Stay safe," Billy said. "Please, you too," Ember promised. "And Billy, when this is over, we are having a serious conversation about your future here." Billy managed a small smile. Then they were pulled apart by the crowd. Ember climbed into a training fighter, checking systems with practiced efficiency. Ribbon settled into a small space behind the pilot seat, making herself as small as possible. "Hold on," Ember told her. "This is going to be rough." They launched into space and Ember immediately saw the problem. A massive ship hung in the void, unlike anything he had seen before. It was not dragon design, not human, not any species he recognized. It pulsed with strange energy and looking at it made Ember's head hurt. "All ships, form defensive perimeter," came the command. "Do not engage unless fired upon. We are attempting communication." Ember took his position in the formation, keeping Billy's ship in his peripheral vision. His friend flew with his usual skill, but Ember could sense the exhaustion affecting his reaction times. Then everything went wrong. The strange ship released a pulse of energy that scrambled their communications. Ships broke formation, confused, unable to coordinate. Some dragons panicked and opened fire. The strange ship responded, but not with weapons. It sent out waves of something that was not light, not sound, but something in between. Ships began spinning out of control. Pilots clutched their heads, overwhelmed by sensations they could not process. Ember felt it too, a pressure in his mind that made thinking difficult. He heard screaming over the comm channel, both dragon and human voices raised in pain and fear. Then he felt Ribbon. The small creature pressed against the back of his seat and projected calm with every bit of her strength. The pressure in Ember's head eased. He could think clearly again. "Billy!" Ember shouted into his comm, not knowing if his friend could hear him. "Billy, listen to my voice. Focus on me, not on that feeling. You can do this." But Billy's ship was spiraling, engines firing at random, heading straight toward the strange vessel. Ember made a split-second decision. He broke formation and pursued his friend's ship, flying close enough that Ribbon's calming influence could reach Billy too. "Ember," Billy's voice came through, strained but coherent. "What is that thing?" "I do not know," Ember admitted, "but I do not think it is attacking us. I think it is trying to communicate." Ribbon made an urgent sound, and suddenly Ember understood. The waves of energy were not weapons. They were feelings, raw emotion broadcast at overwhelming intensity. The creature in that ship was not hostile. It was terrified. Ember felt Ribbon trembling behind him, her small body working hard to filter the overwhelming emotions flooding from the strange ship. Through her, Ember could understand what the dragons and humans could not. This was not an attack. This was a cry for help from a being that communicated through feelings instead of words. "Billy," Ember said urgently into his comm, "we have to stop the others from attacking. That ship is not hostile. It is scared." "How do you know?" Billy asked, his ship now flying steady beside Ember's. "Ribbon can sense it. She can feel what that creature is feeling. It is lost and afraid and trying to ask for help, but we are responding with weapons." Billy was quiet for only a moment. "I believe you. But how do we convince the others?" On the comm channels, Ember could hear Ironwing ordering another strike. Dragon ships were regrouping, preparing to fire on the strange vessel. If they attacked, the creature might defend itself, and then there would be a real battle that no one needed. "We fly between them," Billy said suddenly. "If we position ourselves between the fleet and that ship, they cannot fire without hitting us first." "That is insane," Ember said. "We could be killed. Do you have a better idea?" Billy asked, and Ember could hear the old Billy in those words. The brave, reckless human who had flown simulations no dragon would attempt. The friend who believed impossible things could be done. "No," Ember admitted. "Let us be insane together." They dove toward the strange ship, their small training fighters moving faster than the larger combat vessels could track. Alarms blared in Ember's cockpit as targeting systems locked onto them, and he heard Ironwing's furious voice demanding they return to formation immediately. But they did not stop. They positioned themselves directly between the fleet and the strange vessel, spreading their wings and engines wide to make themselves as visible as possible. "Hold your fire," Billy transmitted on all channels. "This is Cadet Billy Reed. That ship is not attacking. It is trying to communicate. We have someone who can prove it." "Cadet, move aside immediately," Ironwing commanded. "That is an order." "With respect, sir, no," Billy said, and Ember felt a surge of pride in his friend. "I am not moving until you listen." Ember took a breath and made his own transmission. "This is Ember, son of Commander Scala. I have a Purian with me. She has empathic abilities. She can sense what that creature is feeling, and it is not aggression. It is fear. Fear of us." There was a long silence. Then a new voice came on the channel, one that made Ember's heart lift. His mother. "This is Commander Scala. I am monitoring this situation remotely. Ember, explain what you are sensing." Ember felt Ribbon press against him again, sharing her perceptions more clearly than before. "The creature is broadcasting emotions because that is how its species communicates. It came here looking for help. Something happened to its home, something terrible. It is a refugee, not an invader. But our fear and weapons are making it more frightened, and when it panics, its emotional broadcast gets stronger. We are creating the threat we think we are responding to." Another silence. Then Scala's voice, calm and authoritative. "All ships cease targeting. Hold position. Ember, Billy, can your Purian friend help that creature calm down?" Ember looked back at Ribbon. The small creature was exhausted from filtering so much emotional noise, her glow dim and flickering. But when she met Ember's eyes, she chirped with determination. "She says she will try," Ember transmitted. "Then try," Scala ordered. "All ships, weapons to stand by. Let us see if we can talk without violence for once." Ember carefully flew his ship closer to the strange vessel, with Billy following close behind. As they approached, the emotional pressure increased until it felt like Ember's head would burst. But Ribbon worked her magic, creating a bubble of calm around them, and gradually that calm began to spread. The strange ship's pulsing slowed. Its chaotic energy patterns became more rhythmic, almost like breathing. Ember felt the creature inside reaching out tentatively, its fear lessening as it sensed Ribbon's peaceful intentions. Billy's voice came through softly. "It is working. Whatever Ribbon is doing, it is working." For the next hour, Ribbon maintained that bridge of understanding. She could not translate specific thoughts, but she could share feelings, and feelings were enough. Through her, the fleet learned that the creature came from a dimension that was collapsing, that it and others like it were fleeing to find new homes, that they meant no harm but had no other way to communicate except through emotions. Admiral Thornback himself arrived eventually, his massive command ship dwarfing all the others. But instead of commanding an attack, he ordered a science team to approach the strange vessel. They began working on a way to help, to create a barrier that would protect the refugees from the dimensional collapse they were fleeing. By the time it was over, everyone was exhausted. Ember's wings ached from holding position for so long. Billy looked like he might fall asleep in his cockpit, and Ribbon had stopped glowing entirely, too tired to maintain even the faintest light. They returned to the academy, but everything felt different now. Ironwing met them in the landing bay, and instead of anger, his expression showed something like respect. "You disobeyed direct orders," he said. "You put yourselves at risk. You disrupted military protocol." He paused. "You also prevented a war and established first contact with a completely unknown species. I have been an instructor for 90 years, and I have never seen anything like what you three did today." Billy swayed on his feet, and Ember moved to support him. Ribbon, still in her carrier, made a weak chirping sound. "The human is not fit for duty," Ironwing said, looking at Billy critically. "He has been pushed beyond reasonable limits, and today's events have proven what I have long suspected. We cannot train humans the same way we train dragons. They need different approaches, different support systems." "Sir?" Billy said, confused. "You are being reassigned," Ironwing said. "Back to Dawnspire Station, under Commander Scala's supervision. She has proposed a new training program, one that focuses on integrated species teams, rather than forcing humans to become dragons." He looked at Ember. "I suspect you and your companion will be part of that program as, well," Ember felt hope surge through him. "Billy is coming home?" "We are all going home," Billy said, managing a tired smile. He looked at Ribbon. "Is she okay?" "She is exhausted," Ember said. "She gave everything she had to help today." "Then we should rest," Billy said. "All of us, together." They were given quarters to share that night, the three of them finally in the same space after so long apart. Ribbon curled up between Ember and Billy, her glow slowly returning as she recovered. Billy lay with one hand on Ember's scales and the other on Ribbon's soft fur. "I thought I had to do everything alone," Billy said quietly into the darkness. "I thought that was what strength meant. But today taught me something different. Strength is knowing when to ask for help. Strength is trusting your friends. Strength is being part of something bigger than yourself." "You taught me that too," Ember said. "When you left, I thought I would never be whole again. Then Ribbon came, and she taught me that there are different kinds of love, different kinds of friendship. You will always be my first friend, Billy. But Ribbon is my friend too, and together we are stronger than any of us alone." Ribbon purred in agreement, her glow brightening to its normal silver blue. "So what happens now?" Billy asked. "Now we go home," Ember said. "Now we help create something new. A fleet where dragons, humans, and Purians work together. Where everyone's strengths are valued and everyone's weaknesses are supported. Where no one has to be lonely or prove themselves alone." "That sounds impossible," Billy said. "Good," Ember replied. "Humans taught me that impossible just means no one has done it yet." 5 years passed. The program that started with one dragon, one human, and one Purian grew into something that changed the entire fleet. Young members of different species trained together from the start, learning to work as teams rather than competing as individuals. Ember, now a young adult dragon with bright copper scales, commanded his own ship. Billy, at 19, served as his co-pilot and tactical officer. Ribbon, fully grown but still small, held the official position of empathic communications specialist, though everyone knew she was really the heart that held the crew together. Other Purians had joined the fleet, no longer treated as pets but as valued members with crucial abilities. More humans arrived too, and other species that had been overlooked before. The Dawnspire Station became a place where differences were celebrated, not just tolerated. Ember stood on the bridge of their ship, the Friendship, looking out at the stars. Billy sat at the navigation console, plotting their next jump. Ribbon perched on the communications panel, her glow reflecting off the instruments. "New signal coming in," Billy reported. "Unknown origin, broadcasting on emotional frequencies." "Another refugee?" Ember asked. Possibly, Billy said. Or maybe just someone lost and looking for help. Ribbon chirped, her glow pulsing with curiosity and compassion. Ember smiled, set course to intercept. Let us go meet our new friend. As the ship turned toward the unknown signal, Ember thought about how far they had all come. He had started as a lonely young dragon, desperate for connection. Billy had been an orphaned human trying to prove his worth. Ribbon had been a frightened creature rescued from slavery. Now they were family. Now they were exactly where they belonged, together.